One Question is designed to give subscribers valuable insights on how executive leaders in college athletics think about key issues on their respective campuses, in their departments, or within their leagues and conferences.
Greetings, this is Ty Brown and welcome to One Question. Our guest today is Dr. Ingrid Wicker McCree. Dr. Wicker McCree is the Director of Athletics at North Carolina Central University. Thanks for joining us, Ingrid.
Thank you.
Now, our listeners know, and I think everybody in college athletics know, how important it is for an athletics director to be able to evaluate talent. And you've made a pretty good habit of hiring assistants who have become successful head coaches. I think men's basketball, track, football, and a number of others. What are some of the aspects you look for when evaluating assistants for future leadership positions?
Well, and thank you so much. I take pride in all of our coaches that we have here, and that is something, of course, everyone knows that to find quality coaches, and especially when you're able to look within, that's always a bonus. But I think most importantly, of course, is their knowledge base in terms of what that particular sport is, their passion, and that's something that's synonymous, I guess, with all athletic directors would say. They want people around them that are very passionate about student success because that's why we're here. But there are some other things such as their communication skills. How well are they able to communicate, like their vision? How engaging are they? Can they convince me that they can sell an 18 to 22-year-old and their family that North Carolina Central University is their best choice? Head coaches, on campuses have to be the best recruiters on campus. So them having, good and, great solid communication skills, verbally and written, is very important. I also look at professional development. What have they done to hone their skills, to develop their network, to diversify their knowledge and their skills. I look at the professional community organizations that they belong to in order to glean, how committed they are to their development as a professional and as a person. I don't look at just their formal learning experiences, such as their degrees, but what are they doing on their own in terms of those informal learning experiences, volunteer experiences that has enhanced their learning to this point. Of course, you want people that are very energetic, because I know those energetic people are going to empower others, empower me, manage up, and all that takes a lot of energy. And so they have to also be able to keep up with our student athletes. So even though I'm 50 years old now, I think I have just as much energy now than I had when I started coaching at 23. So energy is very important. Connectiveness, how well do they connect with our students? This is a different generation, and there'll continue to be different generations. And so how will they connect, and how can they show how well they connect to students, staff, faculty, alumni, and even people outside of athletics? Who have they worked for? What's been their track record with regards to who have they learned from as a coach, as an administrator, as a manager, and a leader, because every head coach position encompasses those roles.
Right.
And so I'm not saying that they had to work for highly successful bosses, because you can learn a lot from unsuccessful bosses, and you take a blend of a little bit from each person that you work for. But I think it's very important looking at who they have worked for in the past. And then the last thing is, and which is probably one of the most important, is their empathy skills. What is that person's ability to empathize with the student, the parent, their co-workers, anyone that's a part of the program? Because I think when you're able to be in a position to make decisions that's going to impact others and perhaps the university, it's important that that person is open to understanding the issue from all sides. And so those are some of the things that I look for when we're, looking at who we want to become a head coach of our students, because they have to be the best fit.
Right. And now you touched on two things there. Well, you touched on one thing, and I want to ask you a question that's related to the thing you touched on. You mentioned professional development.
Mm-hmm.
And a number of your coaches were assistants there at North Carolina Central before you moved them up to head coach. Do you put in place professional development opportunities for your assistants, I guess, as you evaluate them for possible openings in the future?
Of course, and that's standard for me in my coming on 10 years for all of our staff. Anytime that there's opportunities for people to engage in professional development experiences, we have funded it, and that's something that I think that's not very common amongst especially schools of our size in terms of resource-wise, but I think it's so very important. And the university here, in my 24 years here, they have always been supportive of when I've asked, my former chancellor sent me or allowed me to go to the Center for Creative Leadership for a program. And so because I've been allowed to participate in those opportunities, that's something that I owe to all of my team members. And so our assistant coaches, head coaches, everyone, if they're not going to their sports coach convention, national convention, there's a lot of opportunities on campus and in the state system that offer in terms of professional development. So I'm very high on lifelong learning. And so I encourage it, and anytime that we can help assist with paying for it, I'm going to find the money to do that.
Right, and I've actually attended one of those Center for Creative Leadership seminars, and
it's awesome.
I'm sure you learned a whole lot from there.
No, and I said that experience there, and I've attended, a lot of leadership and management programs, and Center for Creative Leadership, they do it very, very well, and so that was one of the most kind of life-changing in terms of my professional development since I've been an athletic director.
Right. Well, not to make this into a commercial about a different organization, but
I know, I'm sorry.
in terms of leadership, right? And I guess this ties right into my last question for you. North Carolina Central Athletics has been very successful under your leadership. If you had to sum up your organizational leadership style, what aspects would you emphasize as most important?
Wow. I would say, and it's kind of two-part, during our transition, because we were going through this black hole, we didn't have a conference. We experienced a lot of turnover in our staff and in our student athletes, working through, our financial hurdles, a lot of losing. I would say that I was more of a transformational leader, or embraced a transformational leadership style, because I had to be very, very visible with everyone.
Right.
Students, the university, alumni, my staff, but I had to really communicate the big picture. What are we doing, why we needed to do it, and what we were trying to accomplish, while at the same time, making sure I was delegating to my team members to execute that plan.
Right.
And so that leadership style allowed me to help navigate our team through that challenging time. I would say now my leadership style more reflects of a participative leadership style. I really rely on my team members to give me information. Their input is extremely valuable to me, as well as my peers on the Chancellor's leadership team. And I think that whenever there's change, and we've had so much change, and it's constant because you were in higher ed, that when your team members feel like they have a voice and you've empowered them to make decisions and be a part of the decision making, when change happens, there's a greater chance that they're going to be more open to it. Right. and understanding why. And so I just think that when you empower your team members to be part of decision making, when you can, because there's sometimes when you don't have time to engage and you have to make decisions very quickly, but when you do, I think they have a stronger sense of belonging, and they really feel good about their role as a significant contributor to the overall organization.
All right. Well, it sounds like you, specifically in those early tough days in transition, you had to create a positive environment while things around you weren't necessarily going as positive. And now with the with the input you allow people to have, people definitely want to be a part of that and be a part of that positivity.
Oh, yeah, but I've been very fortunate to have great leaders and great bosses, and because my role before becoming athletic director was more of in management, so I really had to transition very quickly from manager to leader. And so because I was always, and my staff will probably tell you I'm still kind of hands-on, but I had to really transition from manager to leader. And I've just been very fortunate to have worked with 3 chancellors in my 10 years that have always been very supportive and mentored me and helped through that transition.
All right. Well, Ingrid, it seems that you've been able to create and maintain a level of success there under your leadership, and we wish you the very best in the future. And thank you for joining us here on One Question.
Well, thank you, Todd, and thank you for this opportunity.
That was Dr. Ingrid Wicker McCree. She is the Director of Athletics at North Carolina Central University, and this is Ty Brown with One Question. Now, she touched on one of the most important aspects of leadership, which is responsive feedback, because people want to know that their ideas are heard and potentially useful. And keep in mind that this ties into that concept, that the role of a leader is to create and maintain an environment that people want to be a part of. And as always, be better tomorrow than you are today. This episode of One Question is produced by Spades Media Group, solving problems using creative leadership.